Hello, friends, and welcome back to Technology Now, a weekly show from Hewlett Packard Enterprise where we take what's happening in the world and explore how it's changing the way organizations are using technology. We're your hosts, Aubrey Lovell
and Michael Bird. Now, in this episode, we are looking at a fascinating project bringing together the best of UX, data convergence, data platforms, and AI, and what that could mean for the future of our organizations. It's essentially a reimagining of the humble database for the 21st century in a package that could be scaled from laptops to data centers. Wow. And it's already showing promise in trial use cases around the world.
So do you want to know more? I certainly do. And if you're the kind of person who needs to know why what's going on in the world matters to your organization, this podcast is for you. And if you haven't yet, which we hope you have, subscribe to your podcast app of choice so you don't miss out. All right, Michael, let's get into it.
Let's do it. Databases are big business. That won't come as any surprise to hear, I'm sure. The global market for databases grew by 12.8% in 2023, according to research by Gartner, and is now worth some $102 billion annually. The bulk of that growth, 91%, is coming via cloud-based services, with around 61% of databases already in the cloud. Within that, data science and AI platforms were the fastest growing subsegments, with growth rates of 29.3% and 21.8% respectively. And we've linked to those findings in the show notes.
Now, that's not to say on-prem solutions are vanishing. They are actually still growing too, around 20% year on year, according to KPMG. And we've linked to that in the show notes too. Now, all that to say, there's a massive and growing need for smart database solutions out there. But on top of all that is a growing need to interpret data and provide insights to all levels and roles within an organization. A breaking down of silos so that everyone gets solid, relevant insights from good data. And it's one of those solutions we're looking into today, HPE's Intelligent Data Platform. Rangan Sukumar is a distinguished technologist in the Chief Technology Office at HPE, responsible for HPC and AI. So Rangan, what is intelligent data and what is the Intelligent Data Platform?
When you think about data, so data becomes intelligent when it becomes useful, and you're able to come up with creative ways of extracting insights and actionable insights from the data. The Intelligent Data Platform is one that HPE is working as an innovation effort internally to think about the future of data platforms for the AI era. If you think about the enterprises today, 80% of the data is unstructured. And so it's very, very hard to understand them, analyze them, explore them for insights. And when I say unstructured data, I'm talking about documents, images, log files, you name it. And so the ability to query data and the ability to query them so you can extract insights fast is where the challenges are today, right? The Intelligence Data Platform is one which is going to help users bridge that gap and improve searchability of unstructured enterprise data towards actionable insights.
So, Rangan, within that, is the Intelligent Data Platform a UX tool, a new way of collecting data, an aggregator, or is it something else?
It's got a little bit of everything you mentioned. So we think about the data platform as a set of tools that you get out of the box that helps you search for the what is in the data. It helps you connect the what if. It helps you conceptualize the what else, and then the hypothesize what could be, right? And so you want to think of this data store as a search engine that helps you not just retrieve data that you already collected, but also predict certain actions for you. So this is the core of a backend we are developing that will host data, and it'll host data that come in different shapes and sizes. It'll have a query engine on top of it that lets you interact with your data. And the query engine's special here because the query engine can now have AI-driven features, can have AI-driven models. It can dynamically understand data based on the advances and the new developments in AI as you bring in new models and populate and make it even more intelligent as you keep going along. You want to be able to do something generative about what if the scenario happened and how would my existing data support that generative decision? You're going to be able to get that, right? And we do that by breaking it down into, at the lowest layer, thinking about a data lake where you just keep pouring data. And then a layer above it is where we transform that layered data, that raw data, into something that is machine understandable, something that AI can interpret, and so forth. So this is the place where your raw data, which is images, data, log files, etc., converts itself into a much more machine understandable, an AI model understandable vector format, or it could be something that captures domain-specific knowledge, or it could be something that's unique to the domain that you extract certain patterns and features and preload them into the data store, right? And then there is a repository of AI models that comes with the data platform that you could tweak, you could choose, you could use some of the open source tooling to be able to bring in new developments of AI, play with it, experiment with it, and so forth. And at the top are multiple interfaces to the data platform, where we're thinking that the future of such platforms are not just going to be query engines where you write SQL code and you get something back. We think that's going to change. We think the queries are going to become much more linear algebraic because of AI. We think the queries are going to have a much more human-like interface where you're asking questions and the database comes back with answers. Or you're asking the question with your voice rather than typing a SQL query, right? So when we think about the data platform's future and imagine a vision forward, we are thinking that this data platform is going to be at the top an interface that lets you interact with data in a human-like experience. It's going to host all of these intelligence with AI models. It's going to apply that intelligence through query engines to machine-readable and represented data sets. And then at the bottom layer of the back end is actually going to be data that feeds into the intelligence and insights.
You mentioned that the platform will convert all kinds of different formats and data sources, from text to video, and to formats that are compatible and AI optimized. How will you do that?
So there's a process, right? So the intelligent data platform allows you to go through the process of the data engineering that you need to be able to do the conversions, so it becomes valuable for you. I think it's better explained if I pick a use case, right? So we did a project with one of the soccer teams that's very popular in the European League. And what we did with them was an experiment to see how could we combine tabulated data like player statistics, match schedules, match strategy that the organization used against its opponents, and so forth. This is all data from previous years' worth of statistics. And then we get live feeds, and then you get feeds from practices and so forth, right? So you're able to record data that you could extract insights from based on how hard somebody's practicing and how it translates into the game and so forth, right? And so this is where we work with the domain experts, and in this case, it would be coaches at the different teams, and help them understand what is a player doing, what is an opponent doing, and how should they prepare both from a predictive nature for the game that's coming up next, and to think about what would the opponent do if you were trying to come up with some changes from your side that they don't anticipate, right? So that's an interesting use case where we say the engineering that goes behind converting videos comes just like you would do with a normal database. But the capability we are bringing is the associatability of tabular data with video data. And now you've combined that, I want to track this player and his athleticism from video. And here's how you can bring the two together. And you start associating both time and the features you can extract from video. How fast is he running? What is he doing when the ball shows up to him? How quickly does he pass? And things like that, right? So all of those feature extraction things that happen on video will happen offline. But then when you start querying the data, once everything's ingested, you feel like the data sets have come together and you're just talking to the live video stream and the tabulated data at the same time.
So I read in a press release, Rangan, that this is going to be one of the first enterprise-level generative AI solutions that's scalable for use on a single laptop to a full data center. How do you actually scale between those kinds of levels and still keep things working?
I'm going to answer this as a three-part answer. The first question, how much of the intelligent data store is going to be useful on the laptop? It's going to depend on the size of the data you're dealing with, right? So if your data set is small enough that you're going to fit in the memory of your laptop, that's your limit, right? For use cases where you just want to play around with data that can be fit on a laptop, sits on the cloud somewhere, it's valuable data that you've collected, and you want to analyze it on demand, we do have the ability to launch the data store image on any of the cloud providers that you're interested in. And then you use it just like you did on your laptop with a front-end query engine that's able to set up the backend and then ingest the data and then start querying it, right? So that's the answer to how does it go from working on a laptop to working as a service, right? But we also have people asking us, can this just work on my data, which is sitting inside, locked up behind firewalls and protected behind multiple layers of legal documents and so forth? And we've had use cases where we deliver appliances where it just works out of the box. It's pre-installed, you get it, you just point to the data, it takes a few minutes to hours, depending on the size of the data, to ingest the data. And once it's ready for querying, we're done, right? So you've got the intelligence of AI, you've got your data ingested and associated with the ability to search using AI. Born at scale is the way we think about it. So we know that we work on simple problems that data scientists want to solve just on their laptops. We know we can stage up data that's petabytes big on supercomputers. And we have seen that entire spectrum of use cases of how when you empower machine learning engineers and data scientists to experiment with AI, the creativity just explodes, right? And so it's a new area that we believe in terms of enterprise adoption of AI and enterprise experimentation of AI, that intelligence data platform plays a unique role from an end-to-end AI perspective.
All right, thanks, Rangan. It sounds like an awesome project, and we can't wait to hear more. So stick around because we'll be back with you shortly.
Okay, well, now it is time for Today I Learned, the part of the show where we take a look at something happening in the world that we think you should know about. Aubrey, what do you have this week?
All right. Well, with a potentially revolutionary roadmap, quite literally, for highway safety is what we're going to talk about today. So the U.S. Department of Transportation has announced a comprehensive plan to get vehicles talking to each other. The policy, which is called Saving Lives with Connectivity, is a plan to expand so-called vehicle-to-everything technology on a massive national basis by the mid-2030s. Now, V2X is a system whereby vehicles from cars to trucks to bicycles communicate with each other and with traffic infrastructure via close-range networking. Trials of the system by some local authorities and car makers globally have proved that it can make vehicles in intersections far safer, and the DOT, which is Department of Transportation, hopes that a nationwide rollout will avoid some 600,000 accidents and 40,000 fatalities annually. That's pretty huge. There are obviously challenges, though. There are potentially cybersecurity issues. Individual drivers might not want to have communication with government infrastructure enforced, and car makers are going to have to agree on standards via the Federal Communications Commission, which will have to set aside radio spectrum for local vehicle Wi-Fi networks, and will have to agree on a rollout plan. And of course, there's also the cost. But it's hoped that by 2036, V2X will have been fully deployed across the national highway system with the top 75 metropolitan areas, and to have at least 20 vehicle models that are V2X capable. That is a mouthful. So a lot to do in a little over a decade, but hugely exciting news.
Yeah, really exciting news. And it is something that we talked about on our sister podcast, Technology Untangled, before. So we've linked to that in the show notes. But I think we should do another episode on this. I think the technology has moved along since then, so maybe we should do another episode, maybe when this has gone a bit further.
Absolutely.
Now it is time to return to our guest, Rangan Sukumar, to talk about HPE's intelligent data platform. And so Rangan, this project sounds pretty incredible. Is this something that I could just go out and buy right now?
So right now, this is an innovation project that's going through its incubation phase, right? So we are taking on customers to validate our product market fit. We are trying to figure out what is the best way to offer the best value to the customer, right? The sports analytics use case I talked about, the use case was very interesting for us because the demand there was we need the database to be ephemeral. We can't keep it running for that scale because it is terabytes to petabytes of data, and we don't constantly keep querying it. We just need it just before the match. We needed to produce the analytic, and people can walk away after that, right? So the on-demand nature of the analytic, the on-demand nature of the scale of the analytic and so forth gives us a certain way to interact with those types of customers. And so the way we are structuring ourselves is today we are happy to take on POCs, project engagements that helps us build the most value to the enterprise. And then the plan is we would be able to offer this as a service on the cloud, first as a software system, and then eventually move up the pipeline where some of our services folks will be able to stand it up for you. So we had a use case with one of the research organizations where they wanted to pull together 13 different data sources and host one centralized repository of knowledge. We did that with them. We basically stood that up on the IDS, on the Intelligent Data Store, and said, here's 30 terabytes of your data. We know how to host it for you, so you can just unleash your queries and see what the system returns, right? We've gone through the entire spectrum of saying, here is the ability to search really, really small data sets on demand. Here is some searchability where you can launch large data sets, but for short periods of time. And here is ways in which you can host the data set for 24/7 and reliable nines type of reliability for databases that you would expect also. So we're trying to calibrate there as to where the maximum value is for the customer and be able to be flexible enough to support all of the above.
So have to ask the question, why should our listeners be paying attention to the Intelligent Data Platform? What's in it for them?
I'll give you a very honest answer here, right? So there is a lot of hype going on with AI right now, right? So AI can do this. AI can do this better than humans. AI can beat a human in chess and can beat a human in Go and every other game that used to be fun before, right? But where I think the real impact of AI is going to happen is when the results from AI are, one, explainable, they're safe, and they're responsible, right? And this is one of the reasons why we are very, very diligent about how we introduce the Intelligent Data Store, is because we want to make sure when we provide the future of AI in enterprises, we want all of those queries, all of those engineer productivity to happen under that boundary of safety, responsibility, and explainability, right? And so forget about all the features I talked about, but if you are thinking about adoption of AI within the boundaries of the ethics and the safety and the explainability, we want to be that platform that you don't have to worry about on top of just the innovation that we bring in also, right? So that would be the reason why I would say you cut through the hype, come to us if you really see the opportunity to create impact with AI on your data. And if you want to do that within those boundaries I just talked about.
All right. Thanks so much, Rangan. It's been great to talk to you. And you can find more on the topics discussed in today's episode in our show notes. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of the show, which means it's time for This Week in History, a look at monumental events in the world of business and technology, which has changed our lives. Michael, what you got?
Well, the clue last week was it's 1985, and this satellite's story is one long tale. Did you get it, Aubrey?
I initially thought about a comment, but I don't think that's correct.
Well, you are very, very close, because it's the anniversary of the first man-made object to pass through the tail of a comet. This week, 39 years ago, the International Cometary Explorer, not commentary, cometary, or ICE, passed through the gas tail of comet Giacobini-Zinner, I know it well, at a distance of around 4,300 miles or 7,800 kilometers from the comet nucleus, somewhere around the orbit of Venus. Now, the ICE spacecraft had a long and interesting history all of its own. It was launched in August 1978 as part of a fleet of craft designed to study the interactions between solar winds and the Earth's magnetosphere. Now, once this was done in 1982, it was then flung out of the solar system towards the comet by being whipped around the moon 5 times to pick up speed. After passing the comet 2 years later, it continued to send back readings to NASA until its mission ended in 1999. Then, in 2014, a non-official group managed to track down the spacecraft and, get this, reactivate it, only to find almost all of its instruments were still active and it had plenty of fuel left.
What?
NASA considered recommissioning it after 15 years of sleep to try another comet flyby, but unfortunately, a failure in the propellant tank meant that it was once again abandoned. Oh my goodness, what a fascinating history.
It really is. I'm still stuck on the fact that it still worked after all those years. Meanwhile, some of us can't even keep track of our gas tank in our cars, you know? That's crazy.
I'm so with you on that.
Really, really interesting. So the clue for next week is 1992, and this mission endeavored to be full of firsts. I think I know this one,
Yes,
Michael.
yes. Me too.
I do. Being a Florida girl, I kind of know, but don't tell. And that brings us to the end of Technology Now for this week. Thank you so much to our guest, Rangan Sukumar, Distinguished Technologist in the Chief Technology Office at HPE, responsible for HPC and AI. And to you, our listeners, thank you so much for joining us.
Technology Now is hosted by Aubrey Lovell and myself, Michael Bird. And this episode was produced by Sam Dattapoulin with production support from Harry Morton, Zoe Anderson, Alicia Kempson-Taylor, Alison Paisley, Alyssa Mitri, and Camilla Patel.
Our social editorial team is Rebecca Wissinger, Judy Ann Goldman, Katie Guarino, and our social media designers are Alejandra Garcia, Carlos Alberto Suarez, and Ambar Maldonado.
Technology Now is a Low Street production for Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and we'll see you at the same time, the same place next week. Cheers!